Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today is a June 8th edition of MSP Talk from the MSP Initiative Live. Let's get some housekeeping out of the way, and then we'll get into the good stuff. So, MSPinitiative.com. This session and every other session we've ever done is under sessions. So, you'll see that in podcast and video format. Check them out. Plenty of sessions there with some good stuff going back all the way to March of 2020. We're doing a live in-person give it back to the community event called MSP Community Minds. That is coming up in Denver, August 14th and 15th, which is not too far from now. And we have a ton of people from around the industry that are going to do workshop-based sessions with you, trying to eliminate death by PowerPoint. Want you to actually start something and walk out with some homework done rather than you taking notes and then never doing anything. We're going to have various topics: legal, security, sales, lead gen, marketing, social, video, all sorts of stuff. And we'll also have some MSP panels. We'll have 3 MSP panels on various topics, and we're about to post our entire agenda shortly. So this event is absolutely 100% free to attend. If you're an MSP, sign up. What do you got to lose? We're not asking for $499.99. You do have to get there. So that part costs a little bit of money, but I promise you what's on the other end of that plane, train, or automobile is well worth your time. So check that out. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 more MSP block parties scheduled for the rest of the year. We have one coming up in Dublin. So if you're headed to DattoCon Dublin at the end of this month, we have a really cool venue that you're going to really enjoy in the heart of Dublin, right after the welcome reception. So on the event schedule, I promise you will not miss it. The next one is the MSP Community Boat Party. This is working in conjunction with our friends at Taylor Business Group. They run an event every year called the Taylor Business Group Big Conference. Lots of smart people that are going to be here. Lots of mature MSPs. We do a 5-story mega yacht boat party down the Intercoastal. Our guest today is very familiar with this boat. The first time we did it was way back when in 2017 at the very last Autotask Community Live. Then we have DattoCon Miami. That's in October, first week of October. And lastly, the big one at the end of the year is the one we do in Orlando. And if you missed it, we'll post some highlights. Yes, we had the All-American Rejects there. And not too soon from, or very soon from now, we'll be announcing this year's band. So stay tuned. We have community offers. These are just companies from around the industry that threw some cool, incentives out there. So check them out. And lastly is our homework, right? What we call industry calendar. It's basically us just throwing all of our homework in one place because there's so many events happening. And if we're missing any, feel free to submit it. We'll happily see if we can sneak it in there if we're missing something. That is all of the homework that I like to put out there on our side before we get started. And without further ado, the one, the only, can't confuse him with anyone else, Mr. Eric Pinto. How you doing today, Mr. Pinto?
Man, I'm great, man. How are you?
Oh, well, every day is a news story, my friend. Nothing like a little Canadian fire, smoke, something or other here in the East Coast, where like everybody's walking out their door and it's like, foggy and smoky and interesting.
Had it hit Philly yet?
I mean, it definitely feels like it's maybe starting to clear up finally, but yeah, it hit us over the last, I don't know, a couple of days. I don't know if you saw some of the social media from like New York City where like it's like totally orange and like nobody can have any visibility.
I saw that.
Kind of like, apocalyptic, end of the world theme, movie edition. But hey, what's a little fire?
Well, I mean, hopefully everyone's okay.
I hope so. Yeah, definitely don't want to hear people in trouble, but definitely like I never really realized it. Like when you're out on the West Coast and you're driving around and they have like the boards up and they're like, hey, air quality score, right? You just don't really hear that here on this part of the country, right? Like it's usually
right.
Like, business as usual. This is the first time that kind of has really hit us in a big way.
Yeah, they were saying you could kind of taste it, like it was heavy in the air in New York at least.
100%, and you could it had a little like tinge to it for sure. But
All right.
interesting, right? Like we've been through an earthquake on the East Coast a little, a few years back. We've been through finally like a hurricane, the Sandy, right? Hit the East Coast a while back. I mean, we just don't usually expect those things in this part of the country.
Come to Texas. It's all good here.
Why? You have a lot of those?
Come to Texas. We don't have any of these problems. Well, we have tornadoes. I guess we have tornadoes here.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess you can't win no matter where you're at, right? You're in Florida, I guess there's hurricanes. You're in the desert, like I don't know, Arizona, like your trash can melts and there's no water. You're in the middle of the country, tornadoes. Like you got to pick your poison, I guess.
Yeah, man, I guess so. Hey, changing subject though. What's going on in the channel, man?
What's going on in the channel? What isn't going on in the channel?
You've always got your ear to the ground. You understand what's happening. What's going on in the channel world?
I mean, I'm surely not, the publications of our industry. I mean, we all read them, but I hear that you don't have to go too far, right? Reddit, and you see that is ConnectWise selling? Are they not? I don't know. Seems like, if you have enough money and the numbers right, everybody's for sale, including them. So I don't know. Seems like at some point in time, they're in a world where something's going to happen. I just don't know when.
How do you think that the MSPs are responding to all of that change? Is it just sort of status quo? Okay, now it's a new owner, just move on, or are people freaking out?
I think everybody at the end of the day is a little bit selfish. And by the way, I don't blame them for them, being that way. I mean, I don't know if they necessarily care about what's happening to the guy next door. They care about their own world. And are they getting the help that they need? Are they able to access somebody when there's an issue in some way, shape, or form? Are things getting resolved in a timely manner? Is their bills right? Is the product progressing? I mean, these are all pretty fair, just simple questions that I think anybody would ask, right? It's like, if I'm a Philly sports guy. I think we know this. It's no secret, right? I'm probably not going to invest in my team like the Flyers, who haven't been competitive in a decade, I feel like. And they're starting from scratch and they're rebuilding and they just cleared the front office, right? But like the Eagles, well, they were just in the Super Bowl. Well, I still think they got shafted, but we'll leave that off to the side for a second. I mean, like, I'm a season ticket holder. I think they put a pretty good product out there. They're competitive. They're a contender. I'm in, right? But if you don't pay your Eagles season ticket bill, you're probably never going to see season tickets ever again. So whether they're bad or not, you're paying your bill. But like personal time, right? Am I going down? Am I tailgating? Am I going to the game? Am I taking people to the game? Like, am I making it a thing? Yeah. Because it's competitively, good product. They're progressing. They add new players.
So are you saying if in God forbid, in 4 or 5 years, if the team took a turn and was not competitive for 3 years in a row, you would still be at the game, still be the season?
I'd still be at the games. I may just not be at all of the games.
Okay.
Right? Maybe I'll pick and choose. I'll be like, well, Dallas is coming into town. I'm going to have to be at that one. No question. Right? Like that. I mean, like, that's what I would do.
To support your Cowboys. I get it. It makes sense.
No, not at all. But that's fine. You're more than welcome to join, by the way, on those Dallas weeks. If you really would like to join, feel free.
Come to a Dallas game in Philly?
Yeah.
Nah, I'm good.
Why? I come to Eagles games in Dallas.
Y'all are a different breed of fan.
What is that supposed to mean?
Take it any way you want to take it.
Oh, okay. At least I'm not. I don't come up here and I don't pump barbecue as like the thing to buy at the stadium. You guys have a Fugazi cheesesteak stand down there in Dallas.
Texadelphia?
No. Inside the state. By the way, never eat at Texadelphia. But like inside the stadium, it's like the Cowboys cheesesteak or cheesesteak the Cowboys way. And I'm like, what is this? Don't ever buy that.
Anyway, next topic.
Okay. So yeah, and then if you follow the feeds and the speeds, because there's so many of them, anonymous posts. I don't know if it's true or not. Somebody's like, oh well, Kaseya's, a bunch of Kaseya's security researchers, like 30 of them have left in the last, I don't know, period of time, and like, what's going on over there? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I don't know if that's true. If it is, like,
Yeah, I mean, how much stock? It's hard with the anonymous posts, right? Because I feel like anyone goes on social and then says anything they want anonymously, true, untrue, factual, backed. Who knows? Just kind of just gets out there
it just, if
anonymously.
it's, listen, if it's not true, shame on the anonymous post. If it is true, definitely concerning. I mean, it wasn't that long ago they had it a breach, right? Like, it was newsworthy. It hit the ticker, right? It was on TV. Like, had some legs to it. So, like, nobody wants to be on the back end of that situation. But, like, if you talk to all the security people out there, they're like, oh well, it's an if, not a when, and like it's got to happen to
It's a
everybody, and
fact.
you just got to, like, and it's like, doesn't mean that we can't limit the bleeding.
True, true. Yeah, but by all accounts, they did all the right steps post, right? They brought in the right team and forensically looked at everything, made adjustments, all the things.
Yeah, but like, it's a constant battle, right? You're not just done. You still got to keep
No.
doing stuff.
Yeah. So let's drive this then down or drive it home. So if they as a global company struggle with these things, how does a smaller business even know what to do
Well, I'm
in
not.
terms of breach preparedness, breach awareness,
Listen,
breach?
I'm no Matt Lee by any means, but like, every time this conversation comes up, there's a conversation about technical debt, software
Yeah.
that was written in 10 years ago, or 8
Yeah.
years ago, or 15 years ago, right? Like, you can't just let it sit forever. It's like, you can't run Windows XP as your computers anymore. And if you are, probably not good. It's, the same argument could be made with, hey, you need to constantly, I just got a new HVAC system in my house, right? And it's like, they don't run forever, right? You get 10, 15, 20 years out of it, you got your money's worth,
You
and
got
you
your
got to
money's
replace
worth.
it.
Absolutely. Yep.
Like,
Correct.
but unfortunately, in technology land, I almost hate to bring up, like, remember Y2K? So long ago,
Yes. Sure.
23-ish years ago. And like, everybody was worried that like all of the software was not written to handle that year change. We're talking about decades, right? Like,
Right.
everything
Right.
was under scrutiny.
Right.
Like,
Right.
it's like there is no I'm done. And like, the tools and the vendors and the technology you're using today may not be the stuff that you're using a year from now, right? Like, there's a constant, I don't know, test and evolution, right? Like, that's how it's supposed to happen. But like, back to, how do the smaller companies handle it? I would assume they don't have as much stuff to deal with, right? Like, you would hope. And then number two, whether they do it internally or whether they outsource it to, just like anybody would outsource their technology to an MSP, for example, there are
Sure.
vendors out there that specialize in vulnerability management and,
Mhm.
scanning through your code to make sure that it's, there's no leaks, and penetration testing, and just general security hygiene, which is probably not the thing that most users care about, to be honest, right? Like,
Yep. That's a fact.
they say chain's only as good as its weakest link. Well, the weakest link is the person behind the keyboard. I mean, usually that's where, I don't know, I hear 80 to 90% of the stuff happens, right? 10% of the stuff is, hey, the right locks weren't put on, the right windows weren't closed, the right doors were left open, right? And like, it happens. Like, if 90% of it is just low hanging stuff, like, don't use the same password everywhere. I mean, like, use a password manager, enable MFA, conditional access, that kind of stuff, right? Like, you just need to be a little bit more diligent than just installing software and hoping that it works.
But they say it's too hard, right? It's too much work. All the MFA, but now I have to. We can't share an account anymore, and we all have to have our phones available to put in the 6-digit code. And George, it's too much for me, right? Isn't that what we hear?
I mean, yes, but I think that part of the, I hate to even say it, but like, part of the hiring process now is like technical capability or capacity to like understand basic technology, right? And like, if you're, like, before it was like, hey, do you know how to use Microsoft Office? Cool. But like, hey, like, you need to follow basic, things, right, to protect yourself. And like, if you don't follow the rules, does it come back down to, do you have a job? Like, I hate to go down to that extreme level, but you almost have to
Doesn't that
do that.
doesn't that same test though then apply to the MSPs that are servicing those businesses?
Yes, but like, who's doing the testing and who's
That,
asking for the scores?
right. That's the bigger problem, right? There
Does
is
the
no test.
buyer of the accounting firm that you're supporting ask for that? Do
They
you?
have to now. The FTC safeguards require them to,
Okay, so like,
and
what are they
and
asking?
and it, and, and it must be included in their contracts now. So
Okay, what is
accounting's a
this?
great example.
What is it must? What is that?
Right. So the ability to monitor systems for weaknesses or vulnerability real time.
Okay.
Annualized pen tests optional. You could do the monitoring instead. Having a system security plan in place so that your security protocols are defined. Having an incident response plan in place so that if something were to be breached, there's a stepped process that you're going to go through, and that's going to be included in the contract of the MSP, including a vetting of their own security processes as well.
So is there like, okay, I own an accounting firm. Do I have a who's giving me the guidance to go and say, hey, I'm looking for a new vendor, please fill out this paperwork? Or, hey,
The FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC is they're giving the guidance, and they've established a checklist.
Okay.
And for the first time, it includes the MSP, which I think is an interesting turn of events.
Well, I mean, I agree. Like, there's two sides of the aisle, right? There's the legislation's coming, you better watch out because it's coming and you're going to have to pay attention and you're going to have to do stuff. But then the other side of the aisle is lawyers they self-regulate, right? They created the bar exam, right? Doctors have their own, group and association and rules. Like, if you self-govern, less chance the government comes in to govern for you, right?
Yeah. So who's gonna bind the group together to put the document in place, right? Where's the self-governance coming from? We're not seeing it.
Yeah.
I
Listen.
mean, you look at all of your assessing and testing bodies that are out there. They all come out with their own, again, guidelines or guidance, but there is no formalized, okay, this is now the standard or will become the standard. It's just a hope that it might.
I'm hoping that there's enough, like, there's individual pockets here and there that are trying to do it, like they're at early stages. I just think that at some point the industry is going to wake up and say, let's just agree to, the rules of the road, and let's present a unified front. I got to think.
But let's go back to the examples you gave. You said lawyers and doctors.
Yeah.
You said the lawyers created the bar exam, and I don't know the history of bar exams. I have no idea. Sure. But there is an entity, state run, state by state. It's a state bar. So there's a state government entity that puts in place a set of questions that someone then needs to answer to then satisfy.
I don't think the bar is a government entity. I think that the bar regulates who is able to be licensed or not. I think the state runs the licensing, but I think the bar itself is not a government entity.
All right, so let's take it there. So, like, to be licensed, you must then do X, right? So you end up in the same spot, right? Even your barber has to go through some level of a test, right? To get that haircut beautiful the way you like it, right? I mean, there's all these different measures and things, and this is the one industry where there's not.
I mean, I don't know the last time you had any, construction done to your place, but like, the license that you get as a general contractor here is pretty low bar, right? Please produce that you have liability insurance and the right coverages, and like, there's no contractor school, right? Like,
well all right, so let's carry that out. So you're right, but there are at least some checks there. But then the next step is you have to get the inspection. So whatever work you do as said contractor, George, is going to be checked by someone else that's going to come in when you're ready to get started.
Right.
Halfway
That's more
halfway through it, and when you're completed. No, it's a check to make sure that the stuff that you contractor, George, said you can do is actually done. There's a check there.
Sure.
So,
I get
so
you.
we're looking for systems where there's no check. There is a check there for them.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. I mean, so the reality is that it doesn't exist at the moment, right? There's a lot of guidance, right? TISA puts out guidance. You just said the FTC puts out guidance.
Well, theirs has penalty though, right? So failure to adhere in the event of breach, failure to adhere could then cause some pretty heavy fines, and you're immediately then liable to all victimized parties, right? So you're open up to lawsuit across the board. Anyone else that feels that they're a victim of your lack of diligence.
Okay, but I mean, could we say that at the very least, data breach notification laws in every state have teeth to it too?
Sure.
I'm sure a lot of people don't realize it, but like as simple as your Office 365 email account for somebody on your team could be justified enough that the people that could have that leads to somebody else having a problem, like you need to notify.
Yeah, no. In fact, there was an article I read the other day that actually confirmed that and said that basically, if you're a small business in any state, you need to be worried about these things. You need to at least be adhering to some baseline guidance, right? So again, back to like a NIST cybersecurity framework or a critical security controls, CISB 8, something.
But back to the breach
to
part,
give you
back to my password got hacked. Somebody's in my Office 365 email account, which is, by the way, pretty common. Let's be honest.
Right.
So like the argument is not the data that you're holding. It's that your account could lead to the compromise of another system, right? They could use your email address to send something bad to them on whoever them is on the other receiving side.
Right.
That could lead to their stuff being compromised.
Right.
I mean, this is what we're talking about.
So how far up the chain do you go? That's for the lawyers to figure out, right? But I think if you look at the net of this across all industries, any business that has the information of others, right? So we could automatically then say, well, that's all businesses. You're going to have at least a subset of your employees, but that's sort of manageable, right? So if you're a small business with 5 employees, you've got their personal identifiable information, but it's small, right? But any business that's managing and maintaining in bulk, the information of others has some responsibilities now. And I think that what we're going to start to see is some checks from the insurance world that says, hey, if you want the insurance or if you want us to pay out, show us how you were, protected in the first place.
I think that's the quickest.
That's going to be a big.
I think that's the quickest way for the stick to happen, right?
Correct. And then the second one, and it's related. If you think about global business, the second one is supply chain. So I'm a bigger business. And it's the exact example that you gave, George. I'm the bigger business, whether I'm a car dealer or whatever, and then you're just, the guy on Main Street, selling cars. But if your system gets breached, which then leads to a breach of my system, what is the news going to say? Is it going to say, Main Street Ford, or is it going to say Ford Motor Company? Right on the news post, right? So supply chain is driving that too, where
I think the
affected business entities are saying no, we won't connect. We can't connect our systems if your systems aren't secure.
All right, hold on a second. What I can control is different than what I can't control. The supply chain, side of things, right? Like if the software of the software of the software is what ultimately was the issue. Like, I don't have control over that per se.
Correct, and that wouldn't necessarily fall on you. Had you still had MFA turned on, had you have all the other checks and balances in place, and their system gets impacted in some way, that then goes to them, right? But if it said, well, yes, there was an issue with their system, but then compounded by the fact that there were no, checks in place, and you were sharing an admin and password across 40 different people and whatever else, then it becomes, well, a lack of diligence on your side, right? At some level.
Yeah. And I think, where, again, the small bit, and by the way, I really feel for the small business, right? I mean,
I do too.
I know the pain. I know it's hard, especially when you're starting something new. You're taking a pretty heavy risk, probably in a lot of cases where, first you're working for somewhere, you had a salary, you had an income, you know what's going on, you make a pivot, you go and start something, and you see Shark Tank and all those other things, right? You're taking sometimes a pretty big risk, right? Maybe you take a loan against your house, you start a company. So I feel for the small businesses, man. And by the way, it's hard. It's hard. I don't care. Anybody tells me it's easy, I don't think you're doing it. But that being said, you almost can't take the same shortcuts that you used to, right? Like, it's like, oh yeah, just use your computer. You can sign into my website and
No.
start doing the
Yeah.
thing, right?
Yeah, none of that. But conversely though, you know, and cat out of the bag for all the consultants out there, it's not necessarily expensive. It's not necessarily expensive to put in a set of tools and work with an MSP like yours or other MSPs around the globe to put in some EDR, some DNS monitoring, some email checks and balances and monitoring there. It's not hard to do those things, and the only next requirement is just document it. Document that you've done these 5 things and that you every year we'll check it. If you do that plus your lawyer will probably do well. Not only in the court of in the actual court, in the court of public opinion, right? Where they say, well, as a small business owner with 12 employees, he did just about everything he possibly could do, right? It's not expensive to get to that level necessarily. A couple $100 a month, $200 a month for any business, any smaller business.
I would say there's a two sides of the aisle on this one too, right? Hey, the consumerization of IT. I'm just going to go subscribe to something, plug it in, I'm good. Like, how do you know? Like, if
I think you still need to pay, so you need to pay somebody to watch it, right? So, but again, even those services aren't necessarily that expensive. A couple hundred obviously was just tool set, but then even when you add some headcount to it, a couple $1,000, $1,000 a month. It's not like paying for a security engineer. You're not paying $100,000 or more for your small business. So it's reasonable enough is my point. But there's two things that have to happen. One, the service providers have to go out confidently to the customer and say, hey, I know you've been on the fence on this, Dr. So-and-so for however many years. We need to take these 3 steps. It's going to cost you $600 a month. You have to be confident enough to just go in and say it. And then if they still flat out no, then it is what it is. But you have to be confident enough in the need to go and present it as this is something you need to do. You must do.
And we can talk probably for a whole session about, we hear over 20 years, right? Sales and marketing is very much like not good. The people in this space, IT services, managed services space, just aren't good at it on the regular. But that's putting that off to the side.
But I halfway think they need to stop selling. Like, these aren't things that, at least on the security side, this is an educational moment, not a sales moment. This is a real talk. Dr. So-and-so, you've been my client for 10 years. I've never steered you wrong here. I've always tried to keep your costs low. This is something you really should not ignore. It's a educational conversation.
Yeah.
It's not selling anymore. And I think if you're selling it because you want to get rich off the next shiny object you saw at the trade show, that's probably the wrong approach too.
Okay. But there is a risk conversation that's in the mix too, right? So like, especially like the people who maybe you were in internal IT and now you're out, right? And you're now starting your own IT shop because you don't have a gig anymore in corporate America. And so like you're going out there looking for anybody to sign up, right? Like who, might be very low hanging fruit. Here's the problem. Now, before 10 years ago, right? Like not as much risk that there is now, right? Because at the end of the day, when something goes bad, even if it wasn't their fault, they're the ones that the fingers pointed to, right? Like, let's say it was a supply chain thing, right? Like 4 levels up out of the control of either the end user or the MSP. And then all of a sudden they're like, well, my system got completely, compromised. It's on you. You were the one that's supposed to be double checking and making sure. And,
Correct. Correct.
Now the MSP is like, whoa, hold on a second. Like I can get you back online. It's going to take me like 40 hours of labor to redo the entire system in order to get you back to ground zero. But by the way, it's not necessarily my fault either, right? Like, you want me
Right.
to do work, I'm happy to, I'm going to charge you for it. But by the way, like, you need to understand that, like, it's a two-way street here. You need to do some stuff. I need to do some stuff. If you don't do stuff, it can't all be on me. And by the way, if that's how it's going to be, do I still want to continue doing this with you?
But see, now go back to like those FTC guidelines that I was laying out before, what the requirements are and how they include the MSP. Now it's in the contract. So now you've in the contract laid out what your security plan is. So this is what we're doing to secure you, best of our ability, best of our ability to your budget, right? We're working together on this, but you're having that conversation with them up front. You're letting them know what the parameters are of that. It's in the contract again. And you've set up what your incident response plan is. So, George, you don't even have to say I'm charging you for it, because in incident response, when there's a compromise, you're already saying at double rate or whatever your rate is for emergency response is assumed. As soon as we say you've got a compromise, this is what this is going to invoke $5,000 or whatever it is.
Okay.
It should be laid out. It should be laid out. And quite frankly, no one should be scared of it. I mean, if there's a compromise, don't you want me to have to assemble a team to answer all these questions that the insurance company is definitely coming for within a 3-day window? Yeah, I do.
Well, I would
let's lay out what that looks like ahead of time.
I would say, if, like, everything you're saying, that on the table, I would say almost every MSP has to go back and relook at their MSA, because I'm sure there is not a section in there for this. Not on every single agreement that you have.
Correct. And these guidelines are only for what the government is deeming as financial institutions. It's a broad scope, from car dealers to accountants to CPAs and a ton of the payday loans and a bunch of other mortgage brokers. So it's a pretty wide scope. But if you just kind of say, okay, if I use that as guidance for any of my customers that have this risk, it'd be a good step.
I mean, I would say that it's probably going to expand at some point. They're just at the beginning.
Correct. But what my point to you and to the world really is that I'm anti-government coming in too much and doing too much, but this is guidelines and guidance, and quite frankly, none of it's bad. Every one of the things that they're asking for, most businesses that have this type of data should be worried about. Should at minimum know what you're going to do if it hits the fan. What do we do? That's a simple plan to lay out.
Sure, no, I get that, and I back to the whole. It's not. Things aren't as simple as they were even not too long ago. I say, let's call it 2010, right? Like 2010, 2012, right? Like, you go backwards in time, not too long ago. The risk to go on and say, yeah, I'll take on you and I'll only do these 5 things for you, and that's it. If it falls outside of these 5 things, don't call me, not my jam, talk to somebody else. Unless you want to pay, me to do more, my scope is just very limited to just this. Right. I don't think you can do that now.
No, and I think you're really cutting yourself short, selling yourself short if you do that too. Like, there's nothing to be scared of here. I understand why on the surface, someone would look at this and go, well, this is all terrible for me as MSP. Actually, I think it's the opposite. I think if the guidance is saying include your third-party servicer in the loop, it also says that someone internal now needs to own the relationship for compliance. What does that mean? That means they can't say, well, we didn't know, or the board wasn't aware of these challenges, or all those outs are gone. So when they want to go on stage and say, well, our board was not made aware of these concerns, and if we had been, they can't say that anymore. So it really empowers the service provider to go in and say, no, these are the things. By contract, we need to at least discuss it. If you don't want to discuss it, that's okay, but I'm laying this out for you. Right?
Okay.
Cost you nothing, but you lay that out.
I still think if they opt not to do those things when they're obligated to, some people are still of the mindset, oh, we'll just sign this waiver.
Yeah. Brad's got some thoughts on that, right?
Just sign this waiver, and like you declined, right? Like, I'm out. Like, I'm not responsible.
But I think his thoughts. I'm not definitely not quoting a lawyer here, but something along the lines of once you've stated it as fact, then you don't need them to sign anything. You've made a statement, a declarative statement to say these are things that you need to be aware of, concerned of, this and more, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's just a little bit more involved in 2023, right? In running a technology firm. Even if you're doing project-based work, I still think that you need to be cognizant of like the liability and the risk part of it. You know, like remember,
maybe even more so because you have very little control over the security, very little control over the rest of the network. They're portraying things in a certain way to you, and you're going in to do a job, and then somehow there's a back door left open because you didn't know about the rest of their policies, and it's your fault. Like that's project work could be even worse, really.
Yeah,
or scarier.
Well,
Because you don't own it. At the MSP, at least you own it. Like you can take a look at it, you can revise, you can see your risks and threats when they're happening. You just go in to do that one thing and leave, it may be even worse somehow.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen,
you have less control.
For the people out there that are hustlers, right? And I'm not meaning that in a negative connotation. I mean, like, hey, you're in there, right? You're trying to find any work you can. You're busting it. You're working hard, like 80 hours a week under the desk, plugging in the cords. Like, I appreciate that person, right? Because like I know I feel for them, right? Because I know exactly what that feels like. It's just you need to you can't just sweep through and take any project from anyone at any place just to get it off the ground anymore.
Correct. 100% correct.
So I think that's
at minimum you have to be mindful of the overarching concerns of well, what does this business do? What am I taking on? What type of information will I then have access to? And then what blocks do I need to put in place for myself?
Yeah. So I had Reed Ward on last session, IT valuations. It's always in the middle of a transaction, whether he's servicing somebody who's trying to sell their company or somebody who's trying to buy something, right? He's usually on one side or the other. I didn't go too deep into him on this call, but in previous calls, we kind of tiptoed around the fact that, hey, your books have to be good. Like your valuation's based on a lot of criteria and EBITDA and all this, whatever. But like, if you have a gaping hole on things not being correctly laid out in terms of, are you, we always hear, make sure that you're doing your homework on your side, right? That could be a problem for you.
That's right.
Because the buyer of your company, let's say in this instance, going to assume the liability that you didn't take care of before you got to that point? I think that's, it's a real question now, right? Because, what happens if they buy your company and a year later you had multiple breaches or multiple ransomwares of your customers? Now, all of a sudden, they bought a shell because everybody's gone. The customers left, the employees left. What do they got left after that?
Well, we're seeing it on the M&A world, right? So, where we'll have a company that we're servicing that then buys another MSP, and then they go in there, and many times they're bringing us in there, and they're like, hey, just tell us, kind of just take a review of the whole thing, look at vulnerabilities, and kind of tell us where we're at. And we come back with it, and they're like, man, this is not great, right? And that's just evaluating the infrastructure of the MSP itself without even going deeper into their customer base, right? So that's always got to be a process to take a look at, what you're getting and how they were running their shop. Because if you're running your shop correctly, the last thing you want to do is bring on inherit a bunch of technical debt from, said MSP that you thought was going to bring you X amount of revenue.
Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't a part of the process in 2021 and 2022, I got to think it's happening now.
Yeah.
Like that due diligence process.
And then the flip side of that might be looking at it and saying, okay, but then that means there's opportunity to take us from what we know we're receiving now, but just by auditing the customer base, right? I can take a quick look at anyone's customer base and go, boom, 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 target those 5. Right. And it's not a big hit for them. You're not gouging. You're not taking advantage. You're literally just filling in gaps that are already existent. Right. But, so you could look at it and say, okay, this is a great opportunity to go in and increase revenues by 30%, just by identifying, 5 different target verticals and, that are already existing in this customer base. So it could be a good thing.
No, at the end of the day, I think one of the things that's really hard, like we hear, I know the numbers. Is it 30,000? Is it 150,000? Somewhere in between is like the actual number of MSPs, if that's the term you want to use. IT service providers, MSPs, whatever.
TSPs.
Just put an acronym to it. I mean,
Right.
It's very difficult for these people to keep up. I mean, like only a small fraction of that number actually show up to the events that we're all talking about all the time. So like, how do these people actually keep up with all the stuff we're talking about? I think there's a gap. There's a knowledge gap.
There's a knowledge gap, but and again, I'm no Matt Lee or anything like that, but I can take a really simple view, right? So I take a really simple view of all of these different compliance challenges and say, what is the common thread here? Again, the information of others. So any business entity that's maintaining information for others or of others, right? Or connecting with larger entities that have what would be deemed as sensitive information has a responsibility to secure it. What that responsibility is, it's going to vary by state. It's going to vary by vertical, but it's all going to come down to some very simple things for you as an MSP. Secure the data, where at rest or in motion.
Okay.
Start there. Log those efforts, right? So have recurring logs that you can always call back on in case something's accessed, right? So having awareness over all the systems that are under your thumb or on that network is step one. Test for vulnerability, step two. Do a some level of a security assessment annually or at least every year and a half. Step three. That gets you 80-90% there with most of these challenges. The rest of it would be which formal audit are we going to prepare for and dotting I's and crossing T's. But the core requirement, is a mixture of, MDR, XDR services on the network, monitoring, DNS activity and monitoring specific endpoints, starting there, checking for vulnerabilities across all. That's
Okay.
it.
I mean, the way you laid it out there, like, doesn't sound like I'm climbing Mount Everest.
You're not. I mean, without naming brands here, but yeah, I mean, you could go into your average show and go and point in 4 different directions and start getting the right solutions together. The problem is you walk into that same show and again, the bright buzzy lights and you're here and you're there and I need this and I need that. And you might need that for a client. You might need something else for a different client. There is no magic bullet here. We start trying to find these magic bullets where it's like, well, I'm only in on this brand. Well, okay. That gets you 50% there. So what are you gonna do about the rest of it? Well, I'm a big fan of this. I'm a big fan of this brand. So what? It's not solving the problem.
I think I think the brand thing, and I'm sure somebody out there is going to disagree because that's just how it is. But I think the brand thing is just, hey, you don't get fired for going with X, right? Like,
right, sure.
Except I'm not a fan of that. I understand
that hasn't really worked, right? I mean, you don't get fired for going with and you name the big corporate brand, but then you say, well, McAfee or something, right? Like we've heard these names that were good and now not good, right? We've gone through these cycles of excitement, which is built on marketing, But the reality is, we have to look at the challenge, which are these requirements, these frameworks. We have to look at the challenge and say, what are the tools required to best address them? And am I equipped as an organization to provide the coverage? And that's where like my organization comes in, for example, with 24/7 SOC. And just as an overlay, go pick the 9 brands that you want. We'll act as an overlay for it. We keep it simple that way. And I think that, and we're not alone in this effort. There's a lot of groups out there that are doing and it's smart, and it's just smart. So it's not, which brand do you love today? Love all of them. Just make sure they're in the right spot and that you or someone else is monitoring the activity. That's it.
Yeah. And I would say that a lot of the time, the monitoring of the activity requires a little bit of integration, right? Like,
oh yeah,
not everything, and that's where it comes back to the homework part, right? Like, if you're going out there to plug these 4 or 5 areas that you're mentioning, like I need to be able to make sure that, without me having to reinvent the wheel, because by the way, I don't have the resources or the time, I need to be able to get to this outcome, right? And I think that that's where there's a little bit of education gap.
but that's why I also say there's companies that act as overlay, right? So if I looked at our own portfolio and say, you know, everything from Sentinel-1 to CrowdStrike to Carbon Black to Sophos already integrated, the entire Cisco line already integrated, 365 and Azure and AWS already integrated. So it just makes it really simple to say, okay, great, they're an overlay to all of my other efforts. You know, call them the the night shift plus cloud, and now I'm good, right? So there's several relationships out there, you know, to be found in the MSP space that just connect the dots.
Yeah, I think part of the problem, other than just general education gap of the service provider, is there's just so many blinking lights in the same categories, and like trying to differentiate like something I may not even be an expert on. Like, you know, I'm 15 bullet points down and I'm like, I have no idea what this is.
I'm 15 bullet points down and I'm supposed to be in this space and I have no idea, George. It's crazy. And you know, that's why I say blame marketing. I love marketing. Sorry, marketing people. but MDR, XDR, NDR, whatever you want to call it. And then, you know, you get on these phone calls and you're like, well, I'm using this XDR product. Well, I have this MDR product. What do either of those things really mean? You start peeling back the onion and realize, oh, well, that means this to this company, but this means this to this company, and it's completely different. And they don't even, maybe not even servicing the same things, you know, at the core. It's really, really interesting.
Well, I you know, to me, it sounds like you can't just buy off of the, you know, cut sheet. And like,
Correct.
listen, I know everybody wants, you know, some dollar amount that, you know, they like, but at the end of the day, it's like, hey, I'm after an outcome, right? And then like the other problem is, and like, listen, there's no argument, like in the last, I don't know, maybe 24 hours, two security companies are like, hey, I got round Z, right? And like all of a sudden they're announcing all this money. And it's like, hey, dude, that's awesome that in the economy that we're in, this is still happening. Awesome. Congratulations. But like, one of the big things that I've always, you know, worried about walking down the aisle, swiping my card is, let's say I bought something today and I realize, it wasn't, I don't think it fits well. I need something else.
Sure.
I have to wait 3 years before I can make a change.
No, sir. Who's signing that contract? That's crazy.
I'm not trying to be tongue in cheek.
Technology and security moves too fast to sign that contract. It just does.
I just fear that because of the lock-in from day zero, you didn't even turn it on yet, right? Like you get maybe 30 days, right? And then like after that, you're in, and like it takes time to, you know, plug it all together and actually know what's going on and that it works. And by the time that you do, you may realize I need something else that's missing something.
But why in today's SaaS world would we lock in anything more than a year? And we don't even require a year. But why would you lock into more than a year in a monthly recurring consumable world? Like, it doesn't make sense. You know, I'm paying monthly for my services. I'm, you know, what are you trying to do? Help their evaluation? That's all you're really doing, right? I mean, more than a year. A year is a great relationship where we can say, hey, you know, give me a discount. I'll stick with you for a year. We'll have the opportunity to reevaluate in the last 60 days of the contract, whatever. That, and again, we don't even do it that way, but that feels right. But forecasting what my security landscape is going to look like in 3 years, we didn't know AI was going to blow up, and it's blown up in 4 months for the regular world. Like how long since we saw those first AI, you know, pictures and stuff like that? Like it wasn't that long ago, a few months, and now it's everywhere.
No.
And the world just caught on like that, right? So in 3 years, come on.
I just think that's how it's being sold up front. You have to actually ask for something other than that. Generally, by the way, I'm not targeting
that seems incongruent with the MSP model. It just does. And again, I don't know who we're talking about here, but it just seems incongruent with the model.
No, and I'm not saying it's one company, it's many companies, only because when you bring in outside money, this tends to be part of the blueprint of that string that comes attached, right? I'm not saying it's, you know, one company versus another. I'm just thinking, generally speaking, when you bring in that outside money, this is the rules of the road.
it just always reminds me of like those old hardware deals, right? Like it seems like we're going back in time to the hardware deal where now I'm trying to effectively pay for this big honking piece of hardware that I don't want across the 2, 3, 4 year period, right? So I own it for that time because I have to pay for it over that time. But we don't have that. There isn't that problem with cloud and recurring revenue sales. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, I hope that it becomes, I mean, obviously there's a lot of ways to buy, right? I mean, next week's PAX 8 Beyond, right? They're popular. I think you're going to be there. I think I'm going to be there. I think a lot of people are going to be there.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
Like,
I'm looking forward to it.
I mean, like, listen, part of their jam is, hey, you can buy and turn on and turn off anytime. I mean, that's part of their business model. I hope it stays that way with all the people in the portfolio. But
that would be indicative of a company that at least currently sort of gets it, right? Like understands that this is the way that MSPs and end consumers are consuming, right? Like think of anything you've bought over a 3 or 4 year other than a house or a car. Come on, nothing.
Cell phone? No, it's 2 years.
Cell phone is even 2 years, and I'm waiting for my Google Pixel Flip $1,800 2 year. I guess maybe I'll take that one over 3 years. But again, that's hard. That's $2,000 hardware, right? It's not the same thing.
I think you're gonna get the new Apple VR glasses.
I'm not an Apple guy. I'm an Android guy. I have a Pixel. Come on now.
Okay, well, augmented reality, man.
I do. I mean, they look cool though. They really do look cool. Whether they're white or whatever, the space goggles.
I don't know if that's the fashion trend I'm after. I got to be honest.
What, white ski goggles?
Yeah.
I think it's a look.
Okay, we'll see.
Everyone went with the white glasses in the channel, right? Everyone went.
I mean, there's only one guy with white glasses in the channel.
No. Everyone went with these, right? The white glasses. Everyone went that.
We know that direction.
So now it's something else. Now it's 100%. Ski goggles.
Brian, you're probably right, by the way, but we won't say that on air.
And now I'm curious.
He's like, well, we know the VR glasses are going to end up in, and I'm like,
yeah.
I mean, let's face it, it's an industry, and it's a rather growing one. It has always been.
It always drives technology, always.
Doesn't it?
It does. That in defense both drive technology.
Some things are new, but some things happen over and over again.
Change subjects.
New isn't necessarily better. I actually just had a little rant about that. I still think that like the actual communication part, like person to person communication, is like over time it's getting worse, not better.
You went on a rant on LinkedIn. You care to dig deeper into that?
No, I had 3 days.
Coming from your soul. You were coming from your soul there.
3 days and 3 messages. I did. Right. And one of my messages were, sometimes you just need to pick up the phone and have a conversation. Or sometimes, like, I would prefer in person. I know that that's not practical all the time. But like the phone in your pocket does more than Facebook.
Did someone wronged you?
I don't know. I'm just
you are not a person to get wronged. I mean, 3 days and three different posts over 3 days.
Simply just trying to explain my ethos, how I see the world. And that may not be right for everyone, but like, I think you can solve more by actually just having a live conversation than like, I don't know, every text or Slack or whatever. Pick any channel that you want, right? Like there's so many of them, but like, I try and type like I talk. And I know not everybody
that gets you in trouble.
A lot of context is removed when you're just typing text.
Right, like the fact you're smiling right now.
But I'm just saying, like, you just like sometimes I'm just like, call me.
Right.
And they're like,
that could be call me or call me. Right. There's no context.
But my point is, instead of email after email after email, it's like, why don't we just have a conversation? Maybe this is like a 5-minute thing and we're done, right? Like.
Did you have the conversation?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
You're unresolved in this one, huh?
I like that's how I function. I just like, hey, let's just talk it out. It's when people I feel like people hide behind the keyboard rather than just have the conversation.
So last 3 minutes here, 4 minutes. Beyond.
Yes.
What do we look? What are we looking for and beyond here?
I don't know. I've been requested to do the tuxedo. I don't know. Maybe I'll do that.
The tuxedo.
Yeah.
Is there like there's no formal thing at Beyond?
No, I know. I may just
do
do it.
I need to repack my bag? I'm already packed.
I might bring one.
You just want to be George James Bond?
I mean, it's not the boat captain this time.
We don't have a boat. All right,
saying.
no tuxedo. I'm out on that. Okay. but any juice, any tea, any gossip? What's going on with Beyond?
Listen, I mean, it's been years in the making, right? And it's been reconfigured and replanned and like the whole thing. So here's what we know. Rob Ray's behind the microphone, and we all know what that means, right? A guy that's done this many, 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 many times. I would even argue what you'll see this year versus what you see next year might look diametrically different. But I think they just need to get this one off. I think you're going to see 1,000+ people. I think you're going to see a ton of vendors. I think you're going to see a ton of people that are recognizable from around the industry. I think there's going to be a lot of learning. I think there's going to be a ton of beers. I think it's going to be just 3 days of just like warp speed, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you there. I'm looking forward to seeing the entire MSP Initiative and BVoIP team will be there. Yes, on the ground.
No special parties, block parties, anything like that. Maybe next year.
I was gonna say anything special from the initiative.
Unfortunately, we were told
no underground initiative party.
No underground. We're gonna
wait. We can just buy out the bar. Let's just do that.
I'm just telling you, next year there's going to be an initiative party, but not this year.
Oh my goodness! All right.
But well, I'll be there.
On that,
I'll be glad.
When are you not?
Exactly.
I'm looking forward to it, buddy. It's been a while.
Yeah, 100%. By the way, where do people find out more about you and your company and like get more information on things that you might be able to help them with?
Yeah, Eric Pinto, Socsoter. You can get me at obviously Socsoter.com or epinto at Socsoter.com. We do security and compliance. We're real heavy focus on the compliance side, regulation side, helping small businesses and MSPs or only through MSPs to unpack this compliance world, which is really difficult, as we talked about on this chat. But I think we've got a pretty simple roadmap. It's a mix of what we do plus likely the tools you already have deployed.
It's hard, but it doesn't have to be hard on your own.
Yeah, that's true, and it doesn't necessarily have to be expensive. It's going to have a cost, right? But I think that the costs have been overblown, the fear has been overblown, and quite frankly, everyone's just sitting on the fence, and that is untenable. You got to make a move.
FTC safeguards, look them up, guys. Google. I think that's a big thing we learned on today's chat.
That's it. All right,
Eric,
sir.
I can't wait to see you in like literally maybe like a couple days.
Sunday. I get in Sunday at 6.
Well,
it's my birthday. It's my birthday, by the way, while I'm there. So,
well, we'll have to celebrate. And like, do you want to put a last second wager on the way out the door? Stopped by security or not in the airport? What do you think?
You're definitely gonna get stopped.
Okay.
So we don't need to wager.
I'll let you know.
Bye.
All right. See you, man. Have a good one.